Back to the daily grind, and shout out to the full-time patrons. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
And what is up, full-time family? This is just going to be a quick recap of the episode that was episode 3 of The Ultimate Fighter season 27, the Battle of the Undefeateds, which is of course coached by heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic and also UFC light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier, who are going to be squaring off in a champion versus champion super fight at UFC 226 at the conclusion of this season. And of course, the day before UFC 226, we're going to have the Ultimate Fighter finale, where 4 of these guys are going to be squaring off, 2 from each division, to see who wins the show as a featherweight and a lightweight in the Battle of the Undefeateds. Now, with that being said, this episode, if you actually, we'll start with a quick recap of last episode. If you recall, in the last episode, SBG Superman Brad Katona, he beat the well-rounded, very young, only 22-year-old Kyler Phillips to advance, and they were both featherweights, I believe. This week, we're going to have the Violent Bob Ross taking on Jose Martinez Jr. Now, with that being said, the episode starts and it shows Jose and a lot of the teammates in the van, right? They're talking a little bit of trash. Like, you immediately, like, there was some drama coming into the show, but it wasn't like, you know, it was just someone took a shot and one of these dudes barked up. We haven't really got to learn much about Dulani yet. That's who ended up talking a lot of the trash and, you know, really coming off pretty cringeworthy and stunting. But first, Jose did take a shot at him, and he just responded. Jose, who's going to be fighting this episode, said something along the line of Dulani's watch and chain were like borrowed. He's like, that's all you brought with you here, your borrowed watch and your borrowed chain. You know, took a couple shots at Dulani's jewelry. So Dulani, that started, you know, that opened up a can of worms. Dulani got in the, you know, he was talking about starting calling Jose a broke boy, saying that he's like, boy, I drive $200,000 cars. I bet you only got one girlfriend. I'm from the hood and I put it in. You know, a lot of the fighters were having cutscenes like, yo, this dude, we're just being quiet while he talks. He's clearly not focused on the fight, and he's just here for his 15 minutes of fame or his TV time. So we're just gonna let him get to talking. But yeah, you know, he's the type of guy that you really don't want to, you know, you want to see lose. Like, but you know, at first I didn't realize homie took shots at him first. Jose told him his watch and chain were fake. All I got at first was Dulani's side, like, yo, I drive $200,000 cars and I got multiple girlfriends, and yo, y'all just mad that you're all broke boys. I was like, ooh, cringe, fuck out of here, dog. You stunting on all these dudes in this fighter van. Like, who do you think you are, man? You're trying to get in the UFC yourself. But hey, man, he was doing a little bit of stunting. Type of guy, if he's successful, that you're going to be watching, because whether you want to see him win or you want to see him lose, you're going to want to see Dulani fight. Now, that's the first time we really got to know Dulani. We'll keep up on him. He hasn't fought yet, but that was a quick scene between Jose and Dulani to start the episode. And then we got to meet a little bit more of the Violent Bob Ross, who was going to be fighting in this episode. You know, the albino dude. He was born in Italy, we found out, but he was immediately adopted in America. He grew up a 6'3" albino black guy with a red afro in a predominantly white town, he said, on an animal sanctuary. He lives on an animal sanctuary, or that's where he grew up. His girlfriend is actually a burlesque dancer. He said she's really crucial because she understands the sacrifice of an MMA fighter. You know, he's got to be away from home for a certain amount of months for the show, and she's down like, yo, I'm just part of his journey. It's dope to really see someone you love get to do something that they love. So, you know, cool little couple. And with that being said, Violent Bob Ross is also going to be fighting this show versus Jose Martinez. So we got to learn a little bit about the Violent Bob Ross. We also got to, you know, learn a little bit about Jose Martinez, his opponent in this episode, as him and some of the other crew were sitting around poolside and they were all like reminiscing about their kids and stuff and their family. And Jose Martinez, we find out, really loves his daughter. You know, he's also, he said he was at like a WWE event when he was younger with his father. His father and him were playing, and his father ended up having a heart aneurysm while he was in his hands, and so he actually ended up, his father died while he was in his arms. So that's, you know, we got to know a little bit of that side of Jose Martinez, you know, a family man. And so he's going to be fighting the Violent Bob Ross. Now, before the fight started, of course, there's a little bit of training. We see the Violent Bob Ross training with his team, Team DC. He's training with Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier was seeming like an excellent coach. he was showing the Violent Bob Ross how he can kick after he pivots, because Violent Bob Ross, every time he would pivot, would go straight for a knee. And DC was like, yo, you can throw a body kick off of that, or even a high kick, or even a leg kick. But the Violent Bob Ross, he was getting a little cranky, man, because the UFC gloves, they were really, I guess, uncomfortable, or the Ultimate Fighter gloves were really uncomfortable. So he was like, man, I don't want to train in these. I'm going to injure myself trying to punch. And DC was like, yo, don't worry about that. Focus on training. No, man, my hands hurt. Fuck that. DC's like, man, it's not that serious. Is there anything you can do about it right now? No. All right, well, then stop complaining. No, man, this just sucks, you know. So he was a little grumpy, complaining a little bit about the gloves. Daniel Cormier got to the point where he was like, listen, use my gloves, my fucking gold championship gloves. He was like, no, I don't want to use your gloves. He's like, use my gloves. I don't care, bro. Just use the gloves. If it's that serious, use the gloves. Let's get back to training. So Violent Bob Ross came a little, you know, came off a little, he was complaining a lot there, came off a little pretentious, a little like, man, I got to use the right gloves, but I don't want to use your gloves. But hey, it is what it is. You know, if he would have been using the wrong gear, right, and he throws a punch and gets injured and can't fight, that ruins his whole opportunity. What's the whole reason to come into the show if I get injured? So maybe he knew what he was talking about as far as the Ultimate Fighter gloves are concerned, although we didn't hear a lot of other fighters complaining about the gloves. But hey, it is what it is. So Luis Pena is his name, the Violent Bob Ross. Got a little edgy there when he was talking to DC. You know, DC had to kind of like, hey, come on, man, let's get back to training. Look, boom, throw it to the head, throw it to the body, throw it to the leg even. So after they got past that little hissy fit, if you will, DC, and they got back to training, and you could really see DC. He's probably going to be a great coach after he's done fighting. Of course, he's got the commentating gig, but Daniel Cormier is really solid in the gym. You can tell he's probably a really good teammate, as probably why a lot of his teammates become world champions. Habib, Luke Rockhold, Cain Velasquez, and others. Now, with that being said, Violent Bob Ross, bro, the albino dude with the red. I just want to call him the Violent Bob Ross because it's a lot easier. Because if I was just calling one of these guys Luis Pena and the other guy Jose Jr., you might not really know who they are if you didn't watch the show. So it's a lot easier to think of this Violent Bob Ross guy you actually see above my head over here, I believe. So the Violent Bob Ross, they were cutting weight, getting ready for the fight. The whole crew was like in the kitchen. Violent Bob Ross was on the couch. Bro, it wasn't even that loud in the house, and the Violent Bob Ross just popped off out of nowhere like, yo, can you guys just shut the fuck up? Like, everybody, out of nowhere. He looked low-key like a serial killer. Like, I was like, damn, this must be where he gets his nickname from, the Violent Bob Ross, because house full of dudes, wasn't even that loud. He was just like, can you guys just shut the fuck up? Like, serial killer level type shit. Like, he was ready to shank some shit. I don't know. He was cutting weight. He was a little cranky, so you got to give him, the edge. We just saw him. He was a little cranky with DC. Then it goes straight to the scene in the house where he's like, can everyone just shut the fuck up? And his opponent, Jose, was like, what are you talking about? Shut the fuck up. We're not even that loud, and you're not even asleep. He was like, it's not like you have to fucking yell. I guess the guys that weren't using their inside voices, they were just being a little too loud for this guy. He wasn't asleep. Everybody was chilling, maxing, cooling, with the boys. And can you guys just shut the fuck up? Like, damn, bro. Dude. Nigga, go to the other room if we're too loud for you. Are you fucking kidding me? But he snapped. Afterward, he said, yo, it's probably just the weigh-ins, I'm cutting weight, probably a little cranky. So we're going to give him a pass. He was cutting weight, but he fucking definitely snapped there for a second. Low-key looking like the Violent Bob Ross. Now it was time for the weigh-ins. Jose Martinez Jr. weighed in at 155 pounds and a quarter, so just a little bit over the limit. He didn't miss weight. You can weigh up to 156, but just a little over championship weight. And then the Violent Bob Ross came in at 153.75, so about a pound under the weight limit. So that's interesting. It's always interesting to me when a fighter weighs in at 2 pounds under. It's like, damn, did they cut too much weight, or are they just coming in pretty small? I saw that in one of Israel Adesanya's recent fights. He came in at 183, I believe, and I was like, okay. But anyways, another topic for another day. So the guys weigh in, then we get to the fight. Not a lot of drama at the weigh-ins. Both guys make weight. The first round was a violent striking exchange, man, where both fighters landed some good hard shots, but I gave the round to the Violent Bob Ross, who landed a wider variety of strikes, and probably also did more damage. He was landing solid punches, kicks, and elbows while having great takedown defense in the third round. One thing I noticed in the fight was he didn't really seem like he was listening to everything DC was saying during the fight. Like if DC would say, throw a kick, And the other guy in the corner would say, throw a knee. He would really throw the knee. Like, he didn't seem to be reacting to everything Daniel Cormier was saying in the corner, and I'm not sure if he's just thinking in his head like, that's not my coach, you know, or if he's just thinking that's a fight. I don't know what it was. Maybe he just didn't hear DC half the time, but I did notice a lot of the times he wasn't really being too receptive to Daniel Cormier's coaching. But there was another guy in his corner, I don't know if it was one of DC's actual coaches or whatnot, he did seem to be reacting to what he was saying, just something I found interesting. And also in the first round, you didn't really see Stipe Miocic much doing the coaching. They more focused on the DC side, but in the second round you actually got to see a little bit of Stipe's. Now as far as Stipe's coaching is concerned on The Ultimate Fighter, I don't really think he's here to show off his coaching skills. He's more here to be like the heavyweight champion and fight in the super fight and stuff like that, maybe a couple of pranks. But Stipe Miocic, you know, coaching isn't really what's shining through during these fights like Daniel Cormier's might. Like I seen he was just like in the second round, you did see Stipe Miocic in the corner a couple of times, and he was more just like watching a good fight, like oh yeah, good one, you know, walk him down, good one. Like, you know, his dude would get hit, he'd be like, ooh. You know, just, like he was just watching the fight cage side and shit. You know, Stipe Miocic just got the best seats in the house. But with that being said, the second round looked like more of the first, with Violent Bob Ross painting a striking clinic in there against Jose, who seemed to not really be able to figure out his range or get past the reach of the Violent Bob Ross. Jose found himself just covering up a few times in the fight, like he were trying to deflect shots in boxing. You know, he was just covering up, taking shots. You know, like he was deflecting punches, going for a ropity-dope or something, trying to get Bob Ross tired. But this isn't boxing. The gloves are smaller, so he's really just eating shots in there. But he was just covering up a lot. He did that in the first round as well. But hey, it is what it is. One of the times he might have landed a big overhand right off of it, but he never had Violent Bob Ross in any trouble. Jose lost the fight via unanimous decision. He came out with quite a few bumps and bruises in the fight too. His face looked like the opposite of a typical Bob Ross painting. Perhaps a masterpiece from the Violent Bob Ross though. So with that being said, they showed the next guys they're going to be fighting in the next show, of course, which is going to be between Jay Cuccinello and Bryce Mitchell from Team DC. Jay Cuccinello's fighting from Team Stipe. But as of right now, Team DC is up 3-0. They won all three of the first fights. Daniel Cormier's coaching is prevailing, but if I'm not mistaken, that also happened in the Ultimate Fighter season I watched between Cody Garber and TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw, he won a majority of the fight. I think Cody's team only won like one fight. Doesn't really mean anything as far as the fight goes. Cody Garber almost took TJ Dillashaw out. TJ Dillashaw ultimately won. But if you're keeping score, Daniel Cormier is up 3-0 moving into the Ultimate Fighter Season 27, Episode 4. So with that being said, this was the Episode 3 recap. Thanks for checking this out. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments about this episode. And as always, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell right next to it so you're notified every time I upload a video. I'm out.
This is #1 bullshit.